Trump, Endgame, and natural law. So Trump is not a dummy. He's brilliant in some ways, even though I think he's dangerous, in my opinion. I mean, this is America. I respect you if you have a different opinion. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm only sharing what's real for me. I think he's brilliant but dangerous. Sometimes people that are brilliant are dangerous because people that are brilliant are used to getting in their way sometimes, and sometimes they don't respect other people. And I think that when you try to start outsmarting other people, eventually you just start outsmarting yourself. The reason why I say Trump is brilliant in a lot of respects is because you don't get to be president by being stupid. Like people said George Bush, the second president, was stupid. And then he said a lot of people misunderestimated him. He said that on purpose, like very self-deprecating, that misunderestimated is probably not even a word. But, sometimes being misunderestimated, works to your advantage. And Trump is brilliant because not only did he get elected president, you don't get to be elected president unless you're brilliant, because only 45 or so people have ever done it. And I hope personally Kamala Harris or somebody else is the first woman president soon, because we should have a woman president. I'm not saying it should be Kamala, but I do think it would be good for the country. Not any woman. I mean, a woman that is a good president. And I haven't made up my mind about Kamala yet, actually, about that. But anyway, I'm talking now as the Capitol is starting to be cleared in a few hours. They said it's just kind of pandemonium, kind of craziness. I mean, things should never have gotten to this point. We should not have, lawmakers fearing for their life, guns drawn in our Capitol building. They say it's the worst thing that's happened in the Capitol since 1814, when the British, I guess, burned down the White House. Trump knew that this was going to happen, or hoped that it was going to happen. I mean, I'm not a mind reader, so it's possible I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I believe that's true. It's my personal belief that he knew that, because it's just obvious. I mean, when you go to he's been ginning this up for months and months to get people riled up, and then he goes to the crowd, the day, at the time when they're about to certify the vote, and he says, go to the Capitol. I mean, he had to know this was going to happen. And I had a recent podcast that said, what are the odds I think that Trump will wind up with jail? I wasn't even talking about this. I was talking about, and I put it at 12 to 15%. You can watch that if you want. But the reason I was talking about his, call to the Georgia Secretary of State, which some people think is criminal and some people don't. And he's also under investigation in New York State for fraud for his business. But I think the end game for Trump is that he's probably going to run again in 2024. I mean, he has a lot of people that, support him. I think it's interesting that both McConnell and Pence, the other two most influential Republicans, both came out against him. Not against him per se, but Pence said, I'm not going to, try to storm the certification process. And McConnell said on the Senate floor that he doesn't support the opposition to the certification. So I think Trump is going to remain powerful, but I think that when Republicans start peeling off from him, it's going to be interesting to see when the vote does take place, do the senators that were going to object to the certification and the reps, are they, after all these violent protests, are they still going to oppose it? I think it's 50-50. I mean, I think it depends what happens in the next 24, 48 hours, but I think they may oppose it or they may not. It remains to be seen. It was interesting. I remember after 9/11, and I was in New York City, on my way to New York City when it happened, and I remember the police, I believe the National Guard, with rifles all over in Penn Station, and the pictures of all the people that were lost and people looking for them. And it was just crazy. I think 9/11, in my mind, was worse than this. I mean, it's hard to say worse, but, just as bad, because you had, 3,000 people killed. And I don't think anybody was killed in this, hopefully, thank God. But anyway, I think the end game from this is I think Trump's going to run in 2024, because I think he has a lot of support, and, a lot of people would vote for him. I think, as brilliant as Trump has been, he would have been more brilliant if he tried to actually unify the country more, because that's what Biden did, and Biden won. So even though Biden didn't win by a lot, because it was close, it still shows that more people would like to unify things, perhaps. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody voted for Biden because he's talked about unification. I mean, people voted for him for probably a lot of different reasons. But I think the divisiveness that Trump, fostered and said, our side, the other side, that's appealing to a lot of people. But thankfully, not enough people to get a second term. And I want to talk a little bit about natural law. I'm not an expert on natural law, so if I misunderestimate any of the aspects of it, then I apologize. Just in a general sense, natural laws is the idea that some laws exist, not just by countries, but by nature. Like, I guess gravity would be a natural law, but also like other kinds of laws as well. And, even laws that impact society. And I think that I did a podcast on if you distributed all the money, because there's a famous saying that says if you distributed all the money equally, that it would flow back to where it started, or it would flow back to a new set of people, as opposed to everybody having the same amount. And I both, agreed with parts of it and disagreed with parts of that, because that's obviously a little bit controversial. But I mean, a lot of people have views on both sides. But in terms of natural law and this situation, I think that, it's good. Protests are good, because if people feel like they don't have a voice, then it makes it worse. That just builds up and builds up and builds up. But you have to respect the rule of law. I mean, the only thing that makes America great, well, not the only thing, but one of the things that makes America great is that we respect the rule of law. And I think, I said 12 to 15% that Trump will go to jail. I don't think he will go to jail, because I think that there's too many people that want him not to go to jail. And I think not only that, I don't think it's been conclusively proven that he has broken the law in any respects, but I think the jury's still out on that, and I'm keeping an open mind. I mean, it may or may not be shown in the future, but I think that he keeps doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. That's what I said in the podcast. But at a certain point, you have to, you run out of chips to double it down on, and I think he's basically run out of chips for these 4 years. Because he's Biden's going to be inaugurated in 2 weeks. And I think in terms of natural law that, we're seeing that, people can disagree, but, even we had a civil war, and the South could have won the Civil War, conceivably, but, things have like thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. Like, there's always force, not force like violent force, but like position, antithesis, force, counterforce, or position, thesis, and again, not actual force, but just, putting an idea forward, and then a counter idea. So you have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And natural law, I think, basically says that, there will be synthesis. Like, even in a civil war or a revolutionary war or any kind of conflict or any kind of disagreement, there'll be some kind of new synthesis that comes out of it. And I think it's interesting to think about it.